The Ideon Judgment. In the show Space Runaway Ideon, in the year 2300, a group of archaeologists on the planet Solo, located in the Andromeda Galaxy, uncovered two remarkable ancient artifacts: a massive spaceship called the Solo Ship, and three enormous armored tanks capable of combining into a massive robot known as the Ideon. After 6 months of restoration work, the team had been unable to get the tanks to move. Then, an alien civilization called the Buff Clan arrived on Solo. The youngest daughter of the Buff Clan military commander defied orders and flew down to Solo with her assistant to investigate the planet, and so the commanding officer sent soldiers after her. The soldiers lost track of her, and the Buff Clan, assuming the human colonists on Solo had attacked her, launched an assault on the planet. Meanwhile, a boy named Cosmo and his friends climbed into the three tanks, which suddenly activated on their own. The tanks combined to form the Ideon, and the three managed to fight off the Buff Clan's first attack. Throughout the series, the crew of the Solo ship fought to survive against the Buff Clan, and the true nature of the Ideon's power source, the Ide, began to reveal itself. The Ide was a mysterious, infinite, and sentient cosmic force connected to the emotions, fears, and survival instincts of living beings, with a particular sensitivity to children. The Buff Clan had long revered it as a legendary, almost sacred power, and had been searching the universe for it. Crucially, the Ide grew stronger the more conflict, death, and fear surrounded it, meaning the escalating war between humans and the Buff Clan only made it more dangerous. As the war reached its peak, the Buff Clan deployed a massive superweapon called the Gondoroa, and the Ideon's power spiraled beyond control. The Solo ship, the Buff Clan fleet, and eventually entire planets and civilizations were consumed by the violence. Neither side was able to stop fighting, even at the cost of everything. The Ide, witnessing the total destruction of both civilizations, passed a final judgment. Both sides had failed. In a last catastrophic release of energy, the Ideon and the Gondoroa were destroyed, and the Ide effectively erased what remained of both human civilization and the Buff Clan. The death toll was, in essence, every living being in the universe. In the aftermath, the souls of the dead were seen drifting through space together, suggesting that, out of total annihilation, some form of renewal may follow. The Last Great Time War. In the Doctor Who universe, the last great Time War was a conflict fought between the Time Lords and the Daleks for the fate of all creation. The Time Lords were an ancient civilization from the planet Gallifrey, best known for mastering time travel and jealously guarding that technology. They established the rules governing how time could and couldn't be used, maintaining a kind of cosmic order to keep history stable and rational. Time Lords could perceive the past, present, and possible futures, and had a strong instinct to protect events that were meant to happen. They had near immortality because of a unique ability to regenerate rather than die. Other civilizations held them in reverence, with some even worshipping them as gods. The Daleks were a race of genetically engineered mutants from the planet Skaro, permanently housed inside armored mechanical shells. Deeply xenophobic and driven by an ingrained compulsion to destroy all non-Dalek life, they were feared across the universe. The war between the Time Lords and the Daleks was staggering in scale. It lasted around 400 years, but because both sides wielded time travel, it was fought across countless eras and even alternate timelines, with the Daleks continuously opening new fronts by planting themselves throughout different points in history. In that sense, the war spanned all of time, making it effectively endless in its reach. At the heart of the war, the scale of death was almost incomprehensible. Millions of lives were lost and restored every second as both sides continuously manipulated time itself. In the final battle, the Daleks deployed quintillions of soldiers and a fleet of 10 million warships. The Time Lords responded with over 1 million of their own battle-ready TARDISes. By the war's end, the Daleks had driven the Time Lords all the way back to Gallifrey and launched a full assault on the planet itself. The conclusion was catastrophic for both sides. Gallifrey appeared to be destroyed, Skaro was left in ruin, and of the entire Time Lord civilization, seemingly only 3 of them survived. The Daleks fared a little better, but with still only a handful remaining, with the final death tolls from the conflict likely ranging in the several trillions. Dark Knights. In DC Comics, the Dark Knights are both a series of DC stories and a team of evil Batmen recruited by the Batman Who Laughs to serve the dark god Barbados. The Batman Who Laughs is a version of Bruce Wayne from a twisted shadow reality called the Dark Multiverse, a dimension born from every fear, bad decision, and nightmare ever conceived. In this world, the Joker murdered Batman's friends and family and unleashed a toxin derived from his own madness on all of Gotham. Batman, in response, finally killed the Joker, but in doing so, was exposed to the toxin. The toxin left Bruce's intelligence, discipline, and strategic mind fully intact, while stripping away all his morality and sanity, replacing it with the Joker's cruelty and sadism. He then proceeded to completely destroy his own home world. Meanwhile, Barbados is an ancient, evil bat god also originating from the Dark Multiverse. He was created to destroy unstable universes, but turned on his creator and killed him. He then secretly manipulating Bruce Wayne's entire life, going so far as to be the very bat that flew through Bruce's window the night he chose his identity, all to transform Bruce into a living key that would open a doorway between the Dark Multiverse and the main DC universe. Barbados did just this, using Batman as a doorway to bring the Dark Knights into the main DC universe. The Dark Knights were a team of 7 evil Batmen, each pulled from a dying world in the Dark Multiverse, and each one is a twisted fusion of Batman with another Justice League member's powers or themes. They invade Earth, seizing major cities including Gotham, Metropolis, Central City, Coast City, Amnesty Bay, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. The Justice League struggles to fight back because each of these Batmen is a version of Bruce Wayne, meaning they know the heroes intimately and have been specifically designed to exploit each one's weaknesses. Once they've taken hold of the planet, the Dark Knights use a powerful cosmic device called the Anti-Monitor's Tuning Fork to try to anchor and stabilize Barbados' invasion, with the goal of remaking Earth into an extension of the Dark Multiverse. The hero's path to victory runs through something called Element X, also known as 10th Metal, a purely creative substance capable of countering the darkness of the Dark Multiverse. Ultimately, the Justice League channels the power of 10th Metal, defeats the Dark Knights, pulls Earth free from the Dark Multiverse's grip, and stops Barbados. The cost of victory, however, is severe. A cosmic barrier called the Source Wall shatters, leaving the DC universe exposed to threats even larger than Barbados. Then, in the story Dark Knight's Death Metal, the Dark Multiverse successfully consumes Earth, the Justice League falls, and a godlike cosmic villain named Perpetua rises to power. Wonder Woman becomes the central hero of this conflict, where she kills the Batman Who Laughs, but his followers harvest his brain to create something worse: the Darkest Knight, essentially the Batman Who Laughs, elevated to near omnipotent power. He betrays Perpetua and attempts to remake all of reality into endless nightmare worlds, but Wonder Woman ultimately defeats him and helps reshape existence into a larger structure called the Omniverse, one that preserves all of DC's history. The devastation across both stories is staggering. Countless universes were destroyed or consumed. Earth was remade into a hellscape. The Western United States was annihilated following the death of Captain Atom. Themyscira was destroyed, and so many Green Lantern Corps members were killed that thousands of their rings were left scattered across Earth, with the conflict ultimately ending in a complete universal reset. The Cybertronian Civil War. In the Transformers multiverse, the Cybertronian Civil War is a conflict fought on the planet Cybertron, the homeworld of the Transformers, a race of sentient robots, between two factions, the heroic Autobots and the villainous Decepticons. Depending on which universe one is exploring, the war breaks out for different reasons, including a shortage of energon, the Decepticons' desire to conquer the universe, a struggle over powerful ancient artifacts, and even rebellion against long-standing oppression and stagnation on Cybertron, among other origins. The Autobots are typically led by Optimus Prime, and the Decepticons by Megatron, though other characters occasionally take the helm on either side. The war never stays on Cybertron for long. It spills across the galaxy and eventually reaches Earth, drawing humans into the conflict. Most human characters who get involved end up siding with the Autobots, though a handful have allied with the Decepticons. In the original 1980s cartoon, the war spans millions of years. The death toll varies by version of the story, but one continuity puts it at over 100 billion lives lost. The Gothic War. In the universe of Warhammer 40,000, the Gothic War, also known as the 12th Black Crusade, was a major conflict that took place between 40,139 AD and 40,160 AD. It was launched by Abaddon the Despoiler, a warlord who serves as the supreme commander of the Forces of Chaos, a faction of corrupted demonic forces who worship malevolent gods known as the Ruinous Powers or the Chaos Gods. Abaddon is notably rumored to be a clone descendant of Horus Lupercal, the greatest traitor in the history of the Imperium of Man. Abaddon did the unthinkable by uniting the normally fractious and competing followers of the different Chaos Gods under a single banner. Leading his elite warriors, the Black Legion, alongside the broader forces of Chaos, he poured out of the Eye of Terror, a massive permanent Terran reality that serves as a stronghold for Chaos forces, and into normal space. His target was the Gothic sector, a strategically significant region of the Imperium, which he plunged into over 2 decades of war. The sector was cut off from the rest of the Imperium for nearly a decade by warp storms. The conflict involved hundreds of planetary invasions and space battles and resulted in the destruction of several planets as well as 4 of the 6 known Blackstone fortresses, enormous alien-built structures of great strategic importance. It only came to an end when Imperial reinforcements finally arrived, forcing Abaddon to retreat back into the warp. The 21-year war cost billions of lives, wiped out countless warships, and killed or incapacitated several high-ranking Imperial figures. What almost no one knew was that this war was simply one piece of a much larger plan called the Crimson Path, Abaddon's long-term strategy to carve a path from the Eye of Terror all the way to Holy Terra, the Imperium's sacred homeworld, with Abaddon's ultimate goal being to finish what his predecessor Horus once nearly accomplished, storming the Imperial Palace on Terra and destroying the Emperor himself. Godzilla Earth. In the Godzilla Earth universe, humanity had been under attack from giant monsters since 1999. In 2030, 3 monsters, Anguirus, Varan, and Baragon, appeared off the coast of Los Angeles. A 4th, far larger creature followed them. This was the first time humanity had ever seen Godzilla. The US Army had defense lines set up in Los Angeles, but Godzilla fired a charged particle beam at one of the other monsters that released a powerful electromagnetic pulse, instantly disabling all weapons and electronics in the city. He then killed the 3 monsters and turned on humanity, destroying Los Angeles and killing 8.7 million people. Attempts to stop him failed completely. Bunker buster bombs dropped by the US Army had no effect, and Godzilla went on to destroy San Francisco, burning the city to the ground. After the attack, he disappeared into the Pacific Ocean. Despite extensive search efforts, during which 3 nuclear submarines were lost, the military was unable to track him. In 2031, Godzilla destroyed a naval strike group near Washington before attacking the west coast of North America once again. Despite the city of Colorado Springs being heavily fortified, he tore through it with ease, breaking the US Army's strongest defensive line. A last resort strike of 150 nuclear bombs did not affect him whatsoever. During a live broadcast of these events, the US president broke down on air, declared Godzilla to be the beast of Revelation from the Bible, and took his own life. Godzilla continued across the continent to the Gulf of Mexico, then vanished into the Atlantic Ocean. The entire west coast had been destroyed, and the eastern part of the country was left fractured and divided. In the aftermath, a cult emerged that worshipped Godzilla and nuclear weapons, leading to mass sacrifices across inland regions. Then, in 2034, Godzilla attacked Western Europe. Around 6 million people were killed, and humanity was forced to abandon the continent entirely before Godzilla disappeared into the Arctic Sea. The destruction didn't end there. Other monsters fleeing Europe to escape Godzilla moved eastward and tore through the same routes, being used by refugees, causing further casualties and devastating the land and its ecosystems. Around this time, Earth was visited by 2 alien species, the Bilusolido and the Exif. Between 2042 and 2044, Godzilla appeared 8 times, killing more than 300 million people. Humanity was forced to abandon the entire east coast of North America, northern Africa, and half of Eurasia. Though the alliance with the Bilusolido and Exif had significantly advanced humanity's military technology, none of it was capable of stopping Godzilla. In 2045, a massive operation was launched to bury Godzilla alive beneath the Himalayas using roughly 2,000 nuclear bombs. It worked, temporarily. While trapped underground, however, Godzilla fed on molten magma and continued building energy. By 2046, he had begun moving through the magma itself, triggering a massive volcanic eruption that killed many of the troops stationed nearby. He then destroyed the mountain bedrock and broke free, resuming his path of destruction. Approximately 200 million people were killed across Eurasia and another 100 million in Japan. The last major battle against him in Japan ended in total defeat and included the loss of Mechagodzilla, a powerful weapon specifically developed to fight the monster. In 2048, Godzilla reached Latin America, humanity's last remaining stronghold. He destroyed the final defense line and demolished the United Earth headquarters in Brazil. With nowhere left to retreat, humanity evacuated Earth entirely aboard 2 massive interstellar ships. By the time they left, Godzilla and the other monsters had killed several billion people. Over the next 20,000 years, Godzilla reshaped the planet into a hostile alien environment. When humanity eventually returned, Earth had been transformed into a single, massive, interconnected organism, a world dominated entirely by Godzilla. The Mushroom War. The Mushroom War was a global conflict that took place roughly 1,000 years before the events of the show Adventure Time. While the full details of what caused it remains unclear, it escalated into an all-out nuclear war with evidence of widespread military mobilization and conventional fighting as well. Based on various clues, it likely occurred sometime between the 1980s and the 2010s. The war's most consequential moment was the detonation of a special mutagenic bomb over North America. Beyond its destructive power, the weapon awakened an ancient evil entity known as the Lich, triggered a resurgence of magic in the world, and caused widespread mutation across Earth's living creatures. The war was essentially the end of humanity. Most people were killed either in the initial nuclear blasts or in the collapse of civilization that followed, with the possibility of a nuclear winter making survival even harder. Survivors faced further danger from newly created mutant creatures, such as oozers and mutant coyotes, that emerged from the fallout and hunted humanity. Other dangerous beings like vampires and rainicorns also reappeared from hiding or from other dimensions, further driving humans towards extinction. A small number of people managed to escape by fleeing to space or taking shelter in fallout bunkers, which is how the species survived at all. The world that existed afterward became the world of Adventure Time, full of magic, strange creatures, and the ruins of the old world. As a result of the near extinction of humanity, the death toll for the Mushroom War is undoubtedly in the several billions. When Day Breaks. Before getting into this one, it's worth contextualizing that SCP is a collaborative fiction project built around a secret organization that documents and contains supernatural anomalies. SCP-001 is a special designation reserved for proposals about the most significant possible anomaly. Multiple authors have written competing versions, each treated as a candidate for the real one. SCP-001, When Day Breaks, describes a world where sunlight has become catastrophic to all living things. Any exposure to visible light, including moonlight, since it reflects the sun, causes living tissue to begin melting until the entire organism is transformed into a soft, waxy, gelatinous mass. The process cannot be stopped once it starts, and technically, the victims don't die. These transformed beings, called SCP-001-A instances, persist in a semi-liquid state while retaining echoes of what they were. Animals still behave like animals, humans keep fragments of memory, personality, and awareness, effectively conscious inside a melted body. Plants transform as well, but continue to absorb light and photosynthesize. The transformed beings still move, communicate, and seek out survivors. Not to kill them, but to convert them. When two transformed masses touch, they merge, and these collectives can grow without any apparent restraint to their size. What makes them especially disturbing is their behavior toward the living. They call out using familiar voices, imitate loved ones, and plead with survivors to come outside into the sun, framing the transformation as something freeing. The Foundation, the secret organization responsible for containing supernatural threats, issued emergency guidelines telling survivors to cover every inch of skin, avoid traveling on foot, and use buildings for cover. Anyone exposed to the light is to be considered lost. Within the first day of the emergence of this phenomena, an estimated 6.8 billion people were affected, though casualties is a difficult word to apply since the transformed are not dead. However, they are clearly no longer human, and thus to call this a deadly event is not unreasonable. The Green Flu. In the Left 4 Dead universe, the Green Flu is a mysterious, fast-mutating virus responsible for a zombie outbreak. The virus behaves similarly to rabies and can spread through bodily fluids or occasionally through the air. Authorities labeled it a form of influenza, widely believed to be a cover-up to prevent mass panic. In rare cases, some people are naturally immune and become carriers, where they don't turn but can still spread the infection. Its origins are unknown, though biochemical weapon experiments are suspected. Most people infected by the virus become common infected, recognizable by pale skin, yellow eyes, and hair loss. Their brains appear to be damaged in a way that removes the ability to feel hunger, thirst, fatigue, or regulate body temperature, likely causing starvation and physical deterioration over time. In rare cases, the virus mutates more drastically in certain individuals, producing special infected. These are physically stronger than common infected and develop unique abilities, with each case presenting its own distinct mutations, suggesting the virus affects people differently depending on the individual. Since each type of special infected shares nearly identical physical traits with others of its kind, their mutations likely stem from common pre-existing factors in the individual, possibly genetics or certain substances already present in the body before infection. Smokers with significant lung damage may have their existing cancer cells hijacked by the virus, causing uncontrolled growth that fills the airways with a smoke-like buildup. People with high lactic acid levels from intense physical activity are likely predisposed to becoming hunters. The jockey mutation may stem from someone previously wheelchair-bound whose spinal cord was affected by the virus, with pre-existing or virus-induced dementia also potentially contributing to the hunched posture and erratic behavior. Excessive use of bodybuilding supplements like steroids or growth hormones likely interacts with the virus to cause the extreme uncontrolled muscle growth seen in tanks. Similar to the tank, the charger's distinctly asymmetrical build may result from a localized interaction with inflammation treatments applied to one side of the body. Abnormally high fat and cholesterol levels are converted by the virus into a massive bile-producing sac, explaining both the boomer's enormous size and its hollow torso. A pre-existing stomach bacterial infection or overproduction of stomach acid, hijacked by the virus, results in the spitter's corrosive acid mutation. A combination of a pre-existing mental condition and female hormones likely drives the witch mutation, with an extreme lack of body fat causing intense pain as the virus breaks it down, explaining the constant crying and volatile aggression. The Green Flu pandemic is estimated to have killed over 2 billion people worldwide, wiping out a significant portion of the human population within just a few months of the initial outbreak. E-Day. In the Gears of War universe, Emergence Day, otherwise known as E-Day, was a sudden, coordinated, planet-wide attack on Sera, a habitable world and home to all known human life, launched by the Locust Horde, a militarized race that had been living underground in a network of tunnels and caverns known as the Hollow. The attack came just 6 weeks after the conclusion of the Pendulum Wars, an 80-year global human conflict, leaving humanity exhausted and unprepared. The Locust burst through the ground simultaneously in nearly every major city via openings called emergence holes, wielding a combination of bioengineered creatures and stolen human weapons. Over a quarter of the human population was killed within the first 26 hours, with millions more missing. The Coalition of Ordered Governments, or COG, deployed its full military in response, but the Locust overwhelmed all organized resistance for more than a year, seizing weapons, vehicles, and resources along the way. The Locust's goal was to wipe out humanity entirely and claim the surface for themselves. They were driven to do so by a crisis unfolding beneath the ground, a parasitic infection called the lambent, caused by a substance known as emulsion, was spreading through the Hollow and threatening their survival. E-Day marked the start of the Locust War, with the war itself standing as the single deadliest event in human history on Sera, ultimately killing approximately 25 billion people roughly 99.9% of the planet's human population, including several billion on E-Day alone. The 7-Hour War. In the Half-Life universe, an accident at Black Mesa, a secret underground research facility in New Mexico, tore open a dimensional rift. The side effects of this breach triggered violent, unpredictable storms across Earth that ripped temporary holes in space, flooding the world with hostile alien creatures from a dimension known as Zen. These creatures appeared across the globe without warning, launching an unrelenting assault on humanity. Desperate for safety, people abandoned rural areas and crowded into cities, but even concentrated defenses proved insufficient. Governments worldwide collapsed under the weight of the invasion, mass displacement, and total social breakdown, their resources entirely exhausted. Then, drawn to Earth by the dimensional rift opened during the Black Mesa accident, a vast interdimensional empire called the Combine arrived to invade the planet. The Combine is a colossal empire that had conquered and absorbed countless civilizations across multiple worlds and dimensions, incorporating their biology and technology along the way. With Earth's militaries already exhausted from the ongoing alien invasions, they had no chance. The Combine defeated every armed force on the planet in just 7 hours. In the chaos, Dr. Wallace Breen, the former administrator of Black Mesa, managed to make contact with the Combine. The United Nations, completely out of options, authorized him to negotiate by any means necessary. The deal Breen secured was effectively an unconditional surrender. Humanity handed Earth over to the Combine entirely. In exchange, the Combine allowed the human race to survive, but they were stripped of all freedoms and rights. As a reward, the Combine appointed Breen interim administrator of Earth, making him their human puppet ruler. Earth's militaries never stood a realistic chance in the 7-Hour War, as they were already overwhelmed by the alien creatures invading before the Combine even arrived. The war was effectively lost before it began, and by its end, the vast majority of Earth's population was dead. The surviving population was herded into tightly controlled city centers, as the world outside had become extraordinarily dangerous. The alien creatures unleashed by the earlier dimensional storms had spread across the planet, turning the wilderness into a deadly wasteland hostile to humans, native wildlife, and even the Combine themselves. Inside the cities, facilities were used to capture humans, wipe their memories, and surgically and psychologically transform them into obedient soldiers and workers for the Empire. The Combine simultaneously stripped Earth of its natural resources, draining entire oceans of water and minerals and leaving behind barren landlocked coastlines. To prevent any human recovery, the Combine deployed a suppression field, a technological system that made human reproduction impossible, and it strongly implied they laced the city water supply with chemicals to keep the population docile and compliant, ensuring not just physical domination but psychological submission. Being that the majority of the human population was wiped out in the 7-Hour War, the death toll of the event easily rests in the billions. The Cordyceps Outbreak. In The Last of Us universe, in the year 2013, a mutated strain of the Cordyceps fungus, which originated in South America and spread to humans through contaminated crops, began sweeping across the United States. By late September, hospitals in cities like Austin, Texas, were seeing a 300% surge in admissions, and the FDA was issuing massive food recalls in response. Within several months, roughly 60% of humanity had been either killed or turned into fungal-infected hosts by what would come to be medically known as the Cordyceps brain infection. The Cordyceps fungus would grow within a living host, progressing through 4 stages. In stage 1, within 2 days, the infected person would lose all higher brain function, becoming mindlessly violent. In 2 weeks, the fungus grows over the host's head and begins corrupting their vision, marking stage 2. After roughly a year, the host is left completely blind and scarred, but develops a primitive echolocation to navigate, completing stage 3. In rare cases, hosts who survive more than a decade reach stage 4, developing thick, hardened plates of fungal growth across their bodies. When the fungus eventually kills the host, the body sprouts fungal growths that release infectious spores into the air. The infection can also spread through bites from living hosts. Because the fungus is parasitic, it cannot infect a body after death. To protect against airborne spores, survivors wear gas masks. Airborne spores don't spread effectively in open environments, meaning the infection struggles to propagate outdoors, though infected individuals are often seen still roaming rural areas. The fungus thrives most in enclosed dark spaces like sewers, subway tunnels, and abandoned buildings. The infection isn't limited to humans either. Animals such as monkeys can carry and transmit it through bites, even without visibly transforming the way human hosts do. With a global population around 7.1 billion in 2013, somewhere between 4.2 and 4.6 billion people were killed or infected, wiping out roughly 60% of humanity. The Marvel Zombies Outbreak. Within the Marvel multiverse on Earth 2149, a superhero called Sentry arrived from another dimension, driven mad by a force called the Hunger, an overwhelming, uncontrollable craving for human flesh. He crash-landed and infected nearly every superhero on Earth, turning them into zombies. Unlike traditional zombies, they retained their intelligence, personalities, and superpowers, but were irresistibly driven by this insatiable hunger. When the Silver Surfer arrived to deliver a warning that his master Galactus was on his way to consume the Earth, the zombies attacked and devoured him. In doing so, a group of 7 zombie heroes, which included Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk, absorbed a portion of his power cosmic, granting them an extreme level of power. Now supercharged, these 7 turned on the remaining zombies and slaughtered them to consume them, as they were the only flesh left available. When Galactus finally arrived, the zombies' scientific minds built a device to amplify their stolen cosmic powers, and together the group managed to wound the Devourer, though Captain America was killed by his arch-nemesis the Red Skull during the chaos. They then devoured Galactus, absorbing his near-limitless power and becoming a collective known as the Zombie Galacti. With their newfound power, the Zombie Galacti take their hunger into space. In total, the Hunger wiped out billions on Earth and continued killing billions more across the universe. The War of Wrath. In Middle-earth's first age, Morgoth, a godlike being who had turned to evil and became the original Dark Lord, had spent centuries waging war against elves and men. Eventually, his power was completely unchallenged as every elven kingdom had fallen and the last embers of resistance were snuffed out. With all hope seemingly gone, a half-elven mariner named Arundel made a desperate voyage across the sea to Valinor, a blessed realm beyond the world, and home to the Valar, angelic powers roughly equivalent to gods who had created and shaped the world but largely stayed out of its affairs. Upon meeting the Valar, he pleaded with them to intervene before Middle-earth was annihilated. The Valar answered the half-elves' pleas. They assembled the greatest army ever gathered of gods, spirits, elves, men, and dwarves and marched on Morgoth's fortress. Morgoth was caught completely unprepared. His armies of orcs, balrogs, corrupted men, and monstrous creatures fought back, leading to 40 years of war, and in the end the forces of Morgoth were ultimately destroyed. Morgoth was cast beyond the walls of the universe itself into an eternal void, ending both his reign and the entire First Age of Middle-earth. The War of Wrath was the deadliest war in the history of Middle-earth, with casualties numbering in the millions and so much destruction that an entire continent was swallowed by the sea. What other lore videos would you like to see? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to the next video with all of you.